It was a cold December evening in 2020 when Justin Bieber sat across from the interviewer, the bright studio lights illuminating his face, yet his eyes seemed distant, as though weighed down by years of untold stories. The interview, part of a series promoting his new album Changes, had all the hallmarks of a typical celebrity chat, talk about music, career highlights, and a glimpse into his personal life. But as the conversation deepened, a more vulnerable side of the pop star began to emerge, one that would resonate with millions. Bieber had always been in the spotlight, since he was just a teenager, his every move documented, his every mistake scrutinized. The world watched as he transitioned from the sweet, heartthrob teen sensation into the adult artist struggling to reconcile his fame with his personal demons. The pressure, the fame, the public missteps, and the emotional toll of growing up under such a microscope had left deep scars, and this interview would give the world a rare look at the trauma he had quietly endured for years. It all started innocently enough. The interviewer, trying to keep things light, asked about Bieber's new album, the sound, and the inspiration behind it. Justin, now 26, smiled, but there was an underlying sadness in his eyes. "I think a lot of the album reflects where I am in life now," he began, his voice steady but soft. "I'm in a different place. I've been through a lot, and it's not something I've talked about much before." The interviewer leaned forward, sensing the shift in energy. "Can you tell us about some of those struggles? What has that journey been like for you?" The room grew quieter as Justin looked down at his hands. His fingers twitched nervously, a subtle tell that he was bracing himself to confront something difficult. For a moment, it seemed as though the weight of his own memories was catching up with him. "I mean, the thing is, when you grow up in the public eye," he started, pausing to gather his thoughts, "you don't really get to experience the normal stuff that most people go through. It's like you're forced to skip over a lot of the growing pains, the lessons you learn. I didn't really get a chance to learn how to cope with failure, with heartbreak, with the things that everyone else goes through." His voice cracked slightly, and for the first time in the interview, the mask of the confident pop star seemed to slip. Justin continued, his eyes glistening as he spoke about his struggles with mental health, his battles with anxiety, depression, and the loneliness that accompanied his rise to fame. "I started using substances to numb the pain," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't know who I was anymore. I didn't know if I was being loved for the right reasons. Was it me people loved, or was it the version of me they saw on TV?" Tears welled up in his eyes as he recounted the darkest periods of his life, the times when he felt completely lost, when he alienated friends, family, and even himself. The fame that once seemed like a dream had morphed into something suffocating. He remembered how it felt to spiral into destructive behavior, how he would hide behind a smile for the cameras while inside, he was falling apart. "People think that being famous is all about the glitz and the glamour," he said, wiping his eyes with the back of his hand. "But no one talks about the pressure. No one talks about the trauma that comes with being in the public eye since you were a kid." The interviewer, moved by Justin's raw honesty, nodded gently. "And how did you pull yourself out of that dark place?" Bieber paused again, the weight of his past lingering between them. "I had to do the work," he said finally, his voice steadier now. "I had to get to a place where I could confront the trauma, where I could actually start healing. I leaned on my faith, my family, and the people who really cared about me. And I had to let go of the need to be perfect. I'm not perfect. I never was. And that's okay." He looked up at the interviewer, his expression softening. "It wasn't easy, but I started to realize that I deserved to heal. I didn't have to be defined by my mistakes or my past." As the interview progressed, Justin spoke about his wife, Hailey Baldwin, and how their relationship had been a cornerstone in his healing journey. "She's been such a light for me," he said with a small smile. "She sees me for who I am, not for the person I was before." The conversation turned towards his faith and the role it played in his transformation. "For me, it was about understanding that there was more to life than what I was seeing. I had to reconnect with God, I had to find purpose outside of my career and outside of the fame. It was about learning to love myself again. In the final moments of the interview, Bieber's voice was steady, almost peaceful. I'm still on that journey. But I'm okay with that now. Healing isn't a destination, it's a process. As the cameras cut and the crew began to pack up, Justin stayed seated for a moment, lost in thought. It was clear that sharing his story wasn't easy, but it was a step toward reclaiming his life and identity. His journey wasn't just about music, it was about healing, growth, and finding peace in a world that had been all too eager to judge him. For the millions who had watched him grow up, this raw and vulnerable interview was a reminder that even the brightest stars have their shadows. And sometimes, the greatest strength lies in the ability to acknowledge and confront those shadows, not as a weakness, but as part of the journey toward healing. And Justin Bieber, in that moment, had shown the world what it meant to heal in real time. The next few days after the interview, the world seemed to hold its breath. Clips of Justin's tearful confessions flooded social media, with millions of fans and critics alike offering their thoughts. But it wasn't just the fans who were moved. Celebrities, mental health advocates, and fellow artists flooded Twitter, Instagram, and other platforms to praise him for his vulnerability. Real strength comes from confronting your truth. Selena Gomez, in a supportive tweet. Healing is not linear. Proud of you, JB, Kendall Jenner, sharing a post about the importance of mental health. Even his former mentor, Usher, tweeted, "The road to healing is long, but every step you take is a victory. Keep pushing, Justin. I'm proud of you." In the midst of the media whirlwind, Justin remained grounded. His team had prepared him for the backlash, the questions about his past mistakes that would inevitably resurface. But he wasn't worried about defending himself anymore. He had said what he needed to say. Hailey, his wife, had always been his anchor throughout his battles. They had met in their teens, briefly before he exploded into superstardom. But it wasn't until years later, after their reunion, that they began their journey together, a journey of healing, trust, and unbreakable commitment. Their love had been tested in ways that many couldn't imagine, but through it all, Hailey's faith in him never wavered. They supported each other through therapy, prayer, and open conversations about the things they struggled with. I remember one night, right after Justin shared his past struggles with me, Hailey recalled in a podcast a year later, he was so scared to open up, afraid of how the world would perceive him. And I told him, it doesn't matter how they perceive you. What matters is how we see each other. And I see you, not your mistakes. In the months following the interview, Justin focused more on his own well-being than his public image. He scaled back his performances, taking time off to spend with family and friends. His social media presence became less about the polished superstar and more about the real person behind the curtain, the one who loved his dogs, who spent hours at the church, who had a messy home just like anyone else. It wasn't all smooth sailing, though. With his new openness came a flood of emotions, some that had been locked away for years. In one of his Instagram posts, he admitted that even with therapy, the process of dealing with his past wasn't easy. Some days feel like progress, and some days feel like setbacks. But that's the truth. It's not always sunshine and rainbows. But I'm trying to be gentle with myself. Healing is messy, Justin wrote, alongside a photo of him and Hailey walking hand in hand on a beach at sunset. For the first time, Justin began to speak openly about the trauma that came with growing up so publicly. He spoke about feeling like a puppet at times, his life dictated by the whims of the press and the opinions of millions. He shared stories of being rushed through interviews as a child, feeling like a product more than a person. I lost a sense of self, he confessed during an intimate live stream on YouTube. And when I was alone at night, I didn't know who I was anymore. I just wanted to feel something real. It was during this period of reflection that he started writing Justice, an album filled with raw emotion, love, and hope. It wasn't just a collection of songs, it was a story of resilience. Each track was an invitation into his soul. From the reflective Ghost, where he mused on lost connections, to the upbeat Peaches, which reflected his newfound joy and simplicity in life. Justice became not just a musical project, but a declaration of his commitment to living authentically. Despite the breakthroughs, there were still moments of doubt. One evening, during a quiet dinner with Haley, Justin opened up about an unexpected sense of guilt that had followed him. "I feel like I've let people down," he admitted, his voice trembling. "People who looked up to me. People who thought I had it all together. And I feel like I can never be the version of myself they wanted me to be."